Aaron, welcome to the Leanpub launch video for What's Your Problem? Break into product management, solve problems, and build your career through mentorship. I was wondering if you could just take a moment to talk a little bit about yourself and about your book and who it's for.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Len. So my book it's a kind of unconventional product management book. Really, it's for helping people break into this product management space. I went through a bunch of issues. I've mentored a couple folks on getting into product management, and what I noticed was they all asked the same exact questions. Instead of doing it for a third time or a fourth time or a fifth time, I was like, you know what, I'll just write it all down. And so just give it out as a handout to people who are looking to break into this. And then I also go into my own journey and how I was a software developer. I absolutely hated it. And so I just sort of quit and worked at Starbucks for a year and just tried to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And then I stumbled upon product management and I was like, that's it. I'm going to be a product manager. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting when we're talking about product management here, we're talking about software products.
Yes. Yeah.
You didn't like coding, but you love software products.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
We love software products. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what would a sort of typical, so if someone's out there and they're like, oh man, I love this whole world, maybe even like I got a degree in computer science, but then I discovered, as much as I love the sort of computer and the science part, the kind of coding part just turns out not to be for you. But what does a product manager do?
Yeah, I mean, typically what we do is, we interview customers a lot. We spend a lot more time in the discovery process of finding problems. And in my book, I talk about, all these interview tactics that I picked up over the years on how to get people talking. I'm pretty good at that because I don't personally love talking about myself. I love hearing what other people have to say. So I go through all of those tactics of finding problems. And so, that's what we as product managers do. We find problems, and we solve them. And, one of my favorite, quotes from a podcast that I also put in the book, it was a Smart Passive Income podcast, was, this guy was talking about, how, he doesn't get passionate about industries or ideas or anything like that. Like, I don't need to find the next $1 billion idea. I just get passionate about problems. And once I have a passion for problems, I can put that passion into anything, right? So, we as product managers, we get super passionate about the problems we want to solve for our customers, and then we solve them.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. You actually go through sort of in detail a couple of examples of how you did this just completely independently, where you're like, I'm going to call landscapers and talk to them about their problems and what their problems are. And one thing I love about that story is that it was just if you actually can just do that. You can just sort of find some sort of subset of businesses and just call them and ask them about what their problems are. And they're going to want to, if you know how to talk to people, and that's something you talk about learning in that year you spent at Starbucks, you can actually draw a lot out of them. And not to give away the whole book or anything, but there's a really interesting there's sort of a very real world kind of element to your stories where it's and so one thing you do is you talk to all these really interesting landscapers. They've got all these problems. You figure them out, and then you're like, oh, but the only real problem they have is that they're not looking for the software solutions that already exist out there.
Yes.
So that's actually not a space. So let's move on and sort of find another set of problems. And I love that sort of awesome detail. And so I guess just before we go, for anyone listening who's interested in sort of maybe they're a developer or they've fallen into software development or something like that, and even if you love it, but you want to go into product management yourself, what's the number one thing you should do? Is it talk to your boss? Is it talk to other product managers? What would you suggest to someone who's sort of thinking about making that step?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, product managers, we're all super, I mean, at least when I was first getting into this, they were one of the few people who I've cold emailed a ton of people and like you mentioned in landscapers. I did the same thing with breweries, and product managers are some of the most accessible people out there. I feel like they respond almost 80% of the time on LinkedIn. So absolutely reach out to us, learn from us. We all have knowledge to share, and we want to share it. So for sure, that's what you want to do if you want to get into product management. Absolutely network, and LinkedIn is possibly the easiest form of just cold outreach out there.
That's really great advice. The book is What's Your Problem, for anyone listening. If you're looking to make the leap or learning what a product manager is, how to get into that business, or even if you are a product manager yourself and you're sort of like just interested in hearing someone else's journey, it's a really great book. So thank you very much, Aaron, for being on this Leanpub launch video.
Absolutely. Really appreciate it, Len. Thanks so much for having me.